The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. At that time, Jesus came to Jericho and intended to pass through the town. Now a man there named Zacchaeus, who was a chief tax collector and also a wealthy man, was seeking to see who Jesus was, but he could not see him because of the crowd, for he was short in stature. So he ran ahead and climbed a sycamore tree in order to see Jesus, who was about to pass that way. When he reached the place, Jesus looked up and said, "Zacchaeus, come down quickly, for today I must stay at your house." And he came down quickly and received him with joy. When they all saw this, they began to grumble, saying, "He has gone to stay at the house of a sinner." But Zacchaeus stood there and said to the Lord, "Behold, half of my possessions, Lord, I shall give to the poor, and if I have extorted anything from anyone, I shall repay it 4 times over." And Jesus said to him, "Today salvation has come to this house, because this man too is a descendant of Abraham, for the Son of Man has come to seek and to save what was lost." The Gospel of the Lord. Mercy moves forward, but it also moves back. Jesus came to Zacchaeus. Beautiful. He extended forgiveness to this sinner. And what happened? Zacchaeus came down that sycamore tree and said, "Woohoo! I'm having supper with Jesus," and everything moved forward like that. But there was something else that happened. Did you hear it? Did you hear that he said, now that I have been touched by the mercy of God, I'm going to go back and repay all those people I ripped off, that I extorted. I'm going to pay them back fourfold. Mercy moves forward, but it also moves back. Sometimes we as Catholics think, well, when God forgives, God forgets. Woohoo! Well, that's getting close to it. But many times when he extends to us his mercy, there's still some unfinished business we need to do. If you stole $10 from somebody and you go to confession and say, "I stole $10 and the priest absolved you, go in peace," that $10 isn't yours now. Woohoo, now that I've gone to confession, I get to keep it. No, you still stole it and you need to give the $10 back. And what can happen for many of us is we have all kinds of things that we still need to do that in the old days we called restitution. Restitution. There's an old-fashioned word we don't hear anymore. But the church says when we have taken something, when we have done damage somewhere, we are obliged to offer restitution according to what we've done. And this is hard for a lot of us. You know, at the beginning of our country, de Tocqueville, the great early social scientist, he came from France, he visited America, and one of the things he noticed about us Americans is we're very forward-looking. We don't look back. It's what makes us great, that we look ahead. We are the 20% or the 80% of every hill town in Europe that had the get up and go to get up and go. And that's part of what makes us so strong. But the downside to it is this: we don't want to look back, even if we have unfinished business. As I've said more than once, we may think we're finished with the past, but the past is not finished with us. And I have seen that for many Catholics, part of the reason their spiritual life is so tepid, so weak, so wishy-washy, is because there are still things they need to do. and they brush it off. God forgives me. Yes, he forgives you. And you still got to pay that $10 back. And you know, sometimes in confession, I talk to people. And it can be difficult. Perhaps that person is no longer around. Perhaps that business is out of business. And I say to them, all right, if you can't directly give back what you stole, what you extorted, what you ripped off from somebody, then at least give that money to the poor as a sign of good faith that you understand that that money does not belong to you. And I want to say this to young people because, you know, there's certain things if I ask you, what do young people do, what do teenagers do, you might list a few things. But one of the things is young people steal. They shoplift. They rip things off. And I want to say to you young people here, if you have stolen something, you've got to give it back. It's no more yours after you went to confession than before. And by the way, get to confession. And you know, it's not just material things like this that we're talking about. One of the things that we can rob and steal is a person's good name, their good reputation, gossip, slander. Do we understand the damage that we have done? We owe that person's name restitution. And it's interesting that the church over the centuries, when it defines what category, what commandment do those sins fall into, they have not simply said it's a matter of the 8th commandment, thou shalt not bear false witness. But the church considers gossip and slander and negative speech to be a violation of the 7th commandment, thou shalt not steal. In what you've said about your family member, about your business partner, about your neighbor, about your pastor, you have stolen their good name. And oh, what damage is done. And you are obliged to do what you can to restore that person's good name. Zacchaeus was touched by God's mercy. He came down from that tree forgiven. But he did not simply move forward to having supper with Jesus. He also gave back what he had stolen, and fourfold. If you have unfinished business like this, don't put it off. It doesn't go away. Don't treat God like a sucker. Oh, he won't care anymore. God wants you to receive every full measure of his mercy. And for some of us, that requires going back and undoing the damage, making restitution, paying back. That's the fruit of mercy. That may be the great blessing of mercy for you.